Test number 2 of parallelism. Again, focus on identifying the subject, the verb, and be careful with parallel markers. Here, displays of the aurora borealis. Displays of the aurora borealis is my subject. Can heat is the verb. The atmosphere over the Arctic enough to affect the trajectories of ballistic missiles. Induce electric currents that can cause blackouts in some areas and corrosion in north-south pipelines. So take a look at the following. You have enough to, by the way, is an idiom, enough to affect, comma, induce, but you need a connector. You need to connect to affect and induce, maybe, right? Otherwise, the list is incomplete. Okay, so I cannot pick that because those are not idiomatic. I need enough to, and the difference between those is, oh, look, the connector. So enough to affect and induce. Remember that you always need a connector such as and, but, or, okay, to link verbs, infinitives, adjectives, etc. So if you have a list, make sure you pick the one with and. You cannot use just a comma, okay, to connect the two verbs or base verbs, affect and induce. That's why the best choice is E. So if you have any question, email me to verbal@gmail.com. Question number 2. The financial crash of October 1987 demonstrated that the world's capital markets are integrated more closely than never before, and events in one part of the world of the global village may be transmitted to the rest of the village almost instantaneously. So be careful with common mistakes. So you have the financial crash, that's the subject. Demonstrated is my verb. So, and then you have demonstrated that the world's capital markets are integrated more closely than never. It's wrong. The idiom is more closely than ever, not never. So look at the split right here. Okay, you cannot use never. A and C are wrong. Then the other ones, you have closely integrated more. Okay, the order is wrong. More needs to come before closely. You need more closely, not closely more. Okay, B is wrong. More closely, more than ever before closely. Okay, that's wrong. So the best choice was D. Now, what is a parallelism? Look at the word and. You have demonstrated that and that. Okay, so you're demonstrating two things. First, that the world's capital markets are integrated more closely than ever before, and second, that events in one part of the global village may be transmitted to the rest of the village. Okay, so that's the common parallelism between that clauses. Okay, so you have that X and that Y. Okay, keep that in mind, and if you have any question, email me to verbal@gmail.com. Question number 3. Okay, here you're starting with a modifier. Lacking information about energy use is describing people. My verb is tend. People tend to overestimate the amount of energy used by equipment, such as lights that are visible and must be turned on and off, and underestimate that used by unobtrusive equipment, such as water heaters. Okay, here you have a lot of connectors. Okay, you have and okay, a lot of ands. Now each and needs to mark parallelism. On one hand, you have overestimate the amount of energy used by equipment. On the other hand, you have underestimate that used by unobtrusive equipment. Now look at the portion that is not underlined here. Unobtrusive equipment needs to be parallel to what? Well, focus on the splits now. You have equipment that are visible, equipment that are visible, equipment that is visible, visible equipment, visible equipment. Equipment is singular, so you cannot pick R. Number 1 and 2 are wrong. Equipment that is visible versus visible equipment. Which one is more parallel to unobtrusive equipment? Well, you definitely need visible equipment. Okay, visible equipment is parallel to unobtrusive equipment. Okay, so that eliminates number 3. You have 2 left. Now you have visible equipment. What's the difference between them? That versus it when. Okay, to keep it parallel, you need number 4. Eliminate number 5. Number 5 has a problem. A couple of problems. You have overestimate the amount of energy used by equipment and underestimate the word that here is replacing the amount. Okay, underestimate the amount used by unobtrusive equipment. Okay, the amount of energy. If you pick it, okay, as we will see in pronouns later, it refers to the exact same noun mentioned before. In other words, it in number 5 refers to amount of energy used by visible equipment. And we don't want that because I'm referring to a different type of equipment. I'm referring to unobtrusive equipment. In addition, using when destroys the parallelism. Okay, you would need when before. In other words, the parallelism here is between overestimate the amount of energy used by visible equipment and underestimate that used by unobtrusive equipment. Remember that the singular that refers to a copy of a noun mentioned before. Okay, so number 4 is the best choice. And if you have any doubt, you can email me to verbal@gmadudes.com. Question number 4. Contemporary cognitive scientists maintain that emotions, which are biological functions, evolved in the nervous system to help animals survive in hostile environments and procreate. And feelings are products of the conscious mind, reflecting the interpretation of emotions. Okay, so you have the marker and in all of them. Some of them are using the subordinator that. Okay, so you have maintain that emotions, the which is describing emotions. Okay, emotions, which are biological functions, evolved in the nervous system to help animals survive in hostile environments and procreate. And you need another that, right? Yeah. So maintain that emotions evolved and that feelings are products. Okay? So you have 3 left. Now, should I use procreate or to procreate? Okay, be careful. If you use the word to, then you may change the meaning, because you could be saying that evolved in the nervous system to help and to procreate, and that would be wrong, because that doesn't make any sense. You cannot say that the emotions evolve to help and to procreate, right? Animals procreate, not the emotions. So eliminate the last one. We have 2 left. Now, to keep parallelism, you have emotions, which are functions. Keep which again, which describes feelings. Okay, so you have emotions, which are functions, versus feelings, which are products of the conscious mind. Okay, in addition, there was another split at the end. Okay, and you needed reflect. Okay, so you have that emotions evolved and that feelings reflect. Okay, so the best choice here was number 3. And if you have any question about this one, let me know. Send me an email to vervo@gmadudes.com. Okay, thank you. Number 5. The typical size difference between males and females has lessened since the origins of the human species, because the size increase in males has been slight while the size increase in females has been great. So After because, you have a subject and a verb. Because the size increase in males has been slight, while the size increase in females has been great. Okay, that's parallel. Let's leave this one for now. In B, you have the male size increase has been slight, and because it has been great in. Okay, this is not parallel. This is wrong. First of all, the male size increase is wrong. Should be the size increase in males. And the word it also refers to the male size. Okay, and because the male size has been great in females is wrong. In C, you have the size increase had. Using the past perfect here is wrong. The size increase, you need present perfect, has been. Okay, all the way, okay, from the past all the way to the present. Number 4 says, because of the size increase being, and that's not idiomatic. After because of, you need a noun, okay, not a noun plus an ing, okay, so that's wrong. Because of increasing, because of ing is always wrong, it's not idiomatic, so the best choice is A. Okay, if you have any question, you can email me to verbal@gmail.com. Question number 6. In undisturbed primary forests, okay, that's a modifier. So in undisturbed primary forests, the subject is the Honduran mahogany grows up to a height of 130 feet. Grows up to a height is redundant. When you're talking about growing, as in growing taller, you cannot say grow up to a height. It's just grows to a height, period. It's redundant to specify. I mean, there is no other way to grow. You can only grow up. Then, having a buttressed trunk and a crown that spread. Having a buttressed trunk and a crown that spread over the canopy of lesser trees. So we'll eliminate number 1. Up to is wrong. Number 3 is grows to as high as 130 feet in height is redundant. Grows to a height, period. Grows to a height of 130 feet. With a buttressed trunk and with a crown that spreads, perfect. Another issue was that spread should refer to the crown. The crown spread was wrong. A crown that spread, yeah, is also wrong. As high a height is redundant. Okay, just grows to a height, period. And the parallelism here is with, okay, the word with, right? With a buttressed trunk and with a crown that spreads. Okay, if you have any question, you can email me to verbal@gmail.com. Number 7. Okay, number 7 is, while recognizing that line often facilitates social interactions. That's a subordinated clause. So who is recognizing? While recognizing, psychiatrists as a subject are seeking is a verb. They're seeking to determine when they become destructive and which kinds of mental problems they can signal. Okay, when they become destructive and which, by the way, even though when and which are different, they have the same function. They are interrogative pronouns. Okay, so this one can work. When and which, it's fine. Interrogative pronoun. Yeah, so B, they become destructive and the mental problems that are signaled by them. The problems, okay, no. If you start with when, then after and, you need something similar or something with the same function. When and which are okay. When and the mental problems, no. When it becomes destructive, okay, be careful between they and it. What is they referring to? Okay, great. They is plural, so line here is singular. Okay, when line becomes destructive, I cannot use they, so I need the singular it. When it becomes destructive, and what are the kinds of mental problems they signal? Okay, so again, when and what are parallel because they're both interrogative pronouns. When and what, when and which are also parallel. So what are the difference we have? I cannot use they because they is plural. I need the singular it, right? When it becomes destructive, and which kinds of mental problems it can signal. Again, it refers to line. Line here is a gerund, okay? And gerunds are nouns. Okay, remember that pronouns must replace nouns, okay? If you have any question here, or if you don't know what an interrogative pronoun is, you can look it up in the book we have, okay, in the parts of speech section. If you have more questions, email me to verbal@gmail.com. Okay, thank you. Question 8. In build-to-suit projects, developers design and construct buildings to meet the needs of a primary tenant who pays the developer a marginal fee for design and construction work and agrees to buy the completed building or will occupy, and agrees to buy or will, that's not parallel, agrees to buy or just, it could be to occupy or occupy. They will is wrong. Okay, so it's one of those two. Agrees to buy the completed building or to occupy all or most of it versus or occupy all of it or most, okay, in exchange for a favorable long-term lease. Okay, so the difference is the modifier between commas here. Agrees to buy or to occupy all or most. All or most is also parallel. All of it. Yeah, so the most parallel one was number 3. Okay. Okay. If you say in number 4 you have occupy all of it or most, this or most is missing something. It's not parallel. Okay. You need all of it or most of it in exchange for a favorable long-term lease. Okay. So yeah, number 3 was the best choice. Then question number 9. Reptiles, by drawing their body heat directly from the sun rather than burning. So you have the common structure X rather than Y. By drawing rather than burning, you can omit the second preposition. So the second by is hidden here. By drawing rather than burning, by drawing rather than the generation, B is wrong, and not from is not idiomatic or parallel. Okay, it's by drawing rather than burning, or instead of by burning, instead of body heat. No, the last one is not parallel. It's either A or D, but remember something. If you use X instead of Y, okay, X must be parallel to Y, and you can only have nouns. Okay, if you use instead of, you need nouns or gerunds. But I cannot use by right after of. Okay, after the word of, which is a preposition, you need either a noun or an ing, not by burning. So, in other words, D is not idiomatic. Okay. Again, after instead of, you need either a noun or a gerund, which is a verb ing, but it's actually a noun. Okay. So keep that in mind. The best choice here is number 1. If you have questions, email me to verbal@gmail.com. Number 9. I'm sorry, question number 10. Okay, so sometimes you can just focus on the splits, and this is a very common one. So you have, when studies showed that the compounds had entered and were harmful. Show that, you need a that. The study didn't show the compounds, okay, or the entry. So A is the only possible choice. Now, but most people may think that that is not parallel because you have different tenses, right? Which tenses do we have here? You have that the compounds had entered and were harmful, but that's perfectly fine. The rules of parallelism tell me that you need two verbs that make sense. They don't always need to be in the same tense, unless you have a close marker, such as not only but also, or both X and Y. Otherwise, if you have an open marker, such as the fanboys and that, or etc., then as long as you have two verbs that make sense, that's perfectly fine. So the compounds had entered, this action occurred before another event, and they were harmful. It's also in the simple past, so that's perfectly fine. And if you have any question, just email me to verbal@gmail.com. Okay, thank you. Question 11. Since digital recording offers essentially perfect reproduction on compact discs, digital audio tapes or digital videos, audio files can accumulate vast collections of music, transferring them from one format to another, copying it and altering it. Okay, so them, it, those are not compatible. What do you transfer from one format to another? It should be the music. Okay, so this is interesting because the pronoun is not really referring to the main noun, it's referring to the object of the preposition of, because that's what makes sense. You copy music, okay? You transfer music, you copy music, and you alter music, not collections. So, the first one is wrong. You need transferring it, copying it, and altering it with little effort and no damage to the sound quality. B was parallel. Transferring them, okay, you cannot use them because you don't transfer collections of music, you transfer music. Number 4, transfer it from one format to another, copy it and then altering. Okay, that's not parallel. Okay, transfer, copy and altering, it's wrong. And transfer it, copying. Okay, be careful. Transfer, copying and alter, okay, those three are not parallel, so the only possible choice was B. And if you have any question, you can email me to verbal@gmail.com. Question 12. Okay, so scientists have recently discovered what could be the largest and oldest living organism on Earth. A giant fungus that is an interwoven filigree of mushrooms and root-like tentacles, spawned by a single fertilized spore some 10,000 years ago and extending for more than 30 acres in the soil of a Michigan forest. And this is perfectly fine. It is parallel. How? Well, because you have spawned and extending. In other words, a past participle parallel to a present participle. Both spawned and extending describe a giant fungus. So you have a fungus that is an interwoven filigree of mushrooms and root-like tentacles. So a fungus spawned by a single spore, a fungus extending for more than 30 acres. So remember that a past participle can be parallel to a present participle. Okay, so you have participles. Okay, when both work as modifiers describing the same noun. Okay, extends is a verb, extended is a verb in the simple past in this context. If I say a fungus extended for more than 30 acres, that'll be a sentence, and I don't want a sentence, I want a modifier because spawned is a modifier. It extended is a sentence, and is extending is present progressive. So no, the only possible choice was A. Why? Because again, as we mentioned in the previous question, when you have a marker such as and, the two elements don't need to be exactly the same, but they must have the same function, okay? And they must, in this case, describe the same noun. Okay, if you have a question, you can email me to verbal@gmail.com. Question 13. According to some analysts, the gains in the stock market reflect growing confidence that the economy will avoid the recession that many had feared earlier in the year and instead coming for a soft landing, followed by a gradual increase in business activity. So you have confidence that the economy will avoid versus in the economy to avoid. And confidence in x2 is not parallel. Confidence in something 2 does not exist. B, C, and D are wrong. Also, you cannot have confidence in the economy's ability because the economy doesn't have ability. And that leaves us with A and E. Okay, 1 and 5. Okay, and which one is parallel here? So you have that the economy will avoid the recession that many had feared in the year and instead come. Will avoid and come. Okay, that's parallel. If you have will in the first term, you can omit it in the second. And then the last one says that the economy will avoid the recession that was feared earlier this year by many. Okay, this was feared by many is passive voice. We don't want that. Okay, we prefer A, which is active. Many had feared. Okay, this is active, is simpler, more concise, more direct. And then the last part says with it instead coming. Okay, that's definitely wrong. It's not parallel. You need A. Will avoid and come. Okay. If you have any doubt, you can email me to verbal@gmatdudes.com.